It's funny how sometimes the worst moment of your life happens in a matter of seconds. Mine took exactly 15. That's how long it took my boss, Nathan Graves, to sit me down in a polished glass conference room, glance at his watch like I was wasting his time, and say the words that flipped my world upside down. "We're letting you go." Effective immediately. It was a Tuesday. The sky was bright. The air outside was electric with anticipation, because today was supposed to be the biggest day of my career. The day I pitched our firm's vision to one of the largest international clients we'd ever landed, a $10 million account that could take our agency from solid to legendary. And I had built that pitch, word by word, slide by slide. I had stayed up nights refining the presentation, weaving strategy with emotion, data with storytelling, insight with impact. This wasn't just a meeting. It was the moment. And now I wasn't even allowed in the room. Nathan's tone was cool, rehearsed, like he'd practiced firing me in the mirror. "We've decided to go in a different direction with leadership for the account. It's not personal, just business." That last sentence should be a felony. I didn't say much, just blinked. Once, twice. My brain scrambling to load the file labeled, "What to do when you're betrayed by the person who owes you everything." He stood up before I could even process it. "We'll arrange for your things to be boxed up. HR will send the exit paperwork. Best of luck." And here's the kicker, the pitch. It was scheduled to happen in that same building, on that same floor, just 2 hours later. At first, I stood frozen, staring at my reflection in the sleek, reflective glass. I didn't see a loser. I saw a man who had just been robbed. I could have left quietly, taken the high road. But the thing about high roads is, they don't always lead to justice. So instead, I took a breath, straightened my tie, and made a decision that would change everything. Nathan might have fired me, but he hadn't changed the fact that I knew that client better than anyone in the building. I knew what kept them up at night. I knew what would wow them. And I knew that his backup guy, Dan from Product, wasn't ready for this. Dan didn't even know the CEO's name. I didn't have a badge anymore, but I still had access to the backup presentation on the shared cloud. I still had the pitch rehearsed in my bones. And more importantly, I still had something Nathan didn't. The client's direct cell number. We'd built trust, me and them. Countless Zoom calls, late night adjustments. I had been their guide through this entire process. So I texted their lead decision maker, Elena Hartman, a message that simply read, "Hi Elena, it seems there's been a sudden change at our firm, and I'm no longer with the company. If you'd still like to hear the version of the pitch we discussed, I'd be happy to walk you through it. Independently. No strings." He walked out without even waiting for a response. Just a quick nod. Like I was a server he'd just dismissed. She replied in 3 minutes. "Wait, what? They cut you? Call me, now." When I heard her voice, I could tell she was furious. Not because I was gone, but because they hadn't even told her. "You were the reason we even considered them," she said. "You understood us." I told her I'd present it to her team anyway, under my name. "All I ask," I said, "is that you judge the pitch on merit. If it wins you over, do what's right for your company. You don't owe that firm anything." That was all I had to say. I booked a hotel conference room across the street from my former office, just big enough for a private walkthrough. I spent the next 90 minutes tweaking the presentation one last time, sharpening every insight, cutting the fluff, loading the visuals. I didn't have their logo behind me, or their branding to hide behind. But I had the truth. I had the story. I had the why. At 4 p.m. sharp, Elena walked into that room with 2 members of her board. No suits from my old company. Just me, standing by the screen. I smiled. "Thank you for coming. I promise I won't waste a second of your time." And then I delivered the pitch of my life. I spoke from the gut, not as a representative of a firm, but as the mind that created the strategy in the first place. I laid out the full campaign, the data-backed market opportunity, the emotional messaging that would connect, the multi-phase rollout plan. I answered every question with precision. But more importantly, I listened. I gave them the respect they deserved. And they saw the difference. When I finished, there was a pause. A long one. Then Eleanor nodded. This is what we needed. Not noise. Not fluff. Just clarity and bold direction. We'll be in touch very soon. They left the room. And that's when the adrenaline drained out of my body. It took 2 days. 2 days of silence. I didn't know if they'd take the pitch and go with Nathan's firm anyway, claiming ownership. I didn't know if I'd ever hear from them again. But then, the call came. Elena's voice was calm, confident. We're awarding the project to you, personally, she said. We'll be drafting a direct contract under your new consulting entity. We want to work with you, not them. I didn't have a consulting entity yet, but I made one that afternoon. A week later, the firm I had given 7 years to released a vague press statement about strategic realignment and restructuring. They didn't mention that they'd lost the client or that their replacement presenter had stuttered through a butchered version of my vision in the boardroom, across the street, only to be met with polite nods and swift exits. They didn't mention the look on Nathan's face when he realized that the $10 million account he tried to steal had walked across the street, right back to me. But I don't need that recognition, because what I gained that day was far greater than a title or a paycheck. I reclaimed my voice. I proved to myself that I wasn't valuable because of the logo. On my business card, I was valuable because of what I built, what I knew, and how I made clients feel. Today, that single presentation has grown into a boutique agency with over a dozen clients who found me through referrals from Elena's firm. We operate lean, we deliver fast, and we never forget where we came from. And Nathan, he still leads that firm, but the industry remembers the story. Word got around, people asked what happened, and the truth has a funny way of floating to the surface. He fired me before the pitch, but the pitch happened anyway. And now, every time I close a new deal, every time a client chooses clarity over corporate noise, every time I walk into a room as my own name instead of someone else's employee, I smile. Because the best revenge is showing them what you were capable of all along